Our top SP security techniques. This is an executive summary. So the first thing, if your network gets hit with something, botnet infections, DOS attacks, a advanced persistent threat break-in, things like that, the hope is your operations team has some sort of process or procedure to do something about it. So in the module, and I'm not going through this module, but you can pull down the module or look at the MAAWG tapes on there on preparing your network operations center, preparing your security operations center. It's important that you actually prepare, right? The analogy I like to use about this is you don't want to be like the fire department, who takes the fire engine out to the fire, and then you open up the manual to figure out how to work the fire engine. Too late. Right? You got to be ready to go with these techniques and practices and procedures and work them out. Whether it's tabletop exercises, red team, blue team exercises, working out configurations in the lab, you want to actually, do some sort of preparation. And in my work in the past, working with operators, there was a very big distinct difference between the operators who actually prepared and those who didn't. You go all the way back in 2003 during Slammer, and we can tell the difference between operations who were prepared and operations who didn't, right? The ones who didn't, their networks were dramatically impacted, and it took a long time to recover. And we're talking about some big names, big surprising names in the industry that took them a long time to recover, right? All because they didn't prepare. Now, where preparation is the most interesting case of preparation happened was in 2000. There was a particular, it's because I can't name them, a cable news organization who called up and called all their vendors, because part of the operational procedure is to call all their vendors and said, hey, we're going to get attacked on this significant date. And the date was the 2000 elections. Now, how did they know that? How did they know that is they used a little tool where they took their VTY access ports, right? So you take your routers, right, switches, you have your VTY access ports. You got an access list you put on there to say, only allow my own staff to access it. But there's a little trick we use in the industry that's a low-cost detector. You say, permit my staff, deny TCP all, deny IP all, log it. So you log it to syslog. Then you dump it off the syslog. You dump it off the syslog, you use MRTG, you do a little graph, and you can see the number of denies per day of people trying to knock and break into your router. Okay? You get SSH scans and things like that. Now, you're going to have a whole bunch of people trying to break into your routers every day. That's something you should know. That's part of preparation, right? They had this tracked, and all of a sudden, they had this tracked, and they had 20 or 30 a day, and all of a sudden it spiked. It went up to 500, right? And they go somebody's probing our network. Somebody's getting ready to attack us. Do we have something going on? We got the elections going on. Somebody's going to attack us during the elections. Press the panic button, follow a procedure. They had a procedure. Contact all the vendors, contact all the operators, prepare for the attack, and sure enough, they were hit in the middle of the elections, right? Now, of course, you also had a surge because if you remember the 2000 elections, who's the president, right? Nobody knew who the president was. So everybody's coming to their site. They got attacked, but their site remained up and running. How did they do that? Preparation. That was all about preparation. This particular phase process, which you'll see, it's the one we usually teach at the MAAWGs and things like that, actually evolved from the February 2000 attacks. This came from a couple of operators and that I went through in a postmortem and asked them, how did you prepare? All the different, companies said you responded the quickest. What did you use? It said, well, here was our process. And I actually went through the process. And so this is kind of like one of the processes we teach. It's not the only one out there. As long as your team prepare with it. So preparing the knock is key. So one of the things to go back and ask your team, are we prepared? What's our process? What's our procedure? Let's do a red team, blue team exercise. Let's do a tabletop exercise. Let's do a lab exercise. Let's do something to prepare. The next thing, the second one on the list is collaboration. And collaboration, at a group like MAAWG is one, but go beyond MAAWG. Find out the other groups with it. So much so to a point that I highly recommend any of the security operation teams and service providers to find a incident team to participate with. In other words, don't wait until you get attacked or you get broken into or you have an APT incident attacking you before you go off and do something. So for instance, we just wrapped up DNS Changer, the rogue digital operation with the FBI. Had a whole bunch of service providers participate with that. So you look for those things and say, hey, I can do something. And whatever I do is going to protect my customers, but I want to participate. I'll work with these peers, right? I'll help somebody else out. I see somebody get attacked out there, right, with a DOS attack. A few of the bots are coming from my network. I'm going to help out there, right? So by you stepping forward and helping when you're not under crisis prepares you for when you become under crisis and you have to call and say, help me, please. Now I'm getting attacked by a botnet or my customer's getting attacked by a botnet, okay? So these groups are really imperative. As I mentioned before, it's the human network that's actually making the difference. And you have to invest in that human network. You can't just wait and, call somebody in the middle of emergency. It's a goodwill sort of stuff. If I invest in helping you out, right, karma comes back, and people are going to help me out when I'm in a dire need. Who benefits? Your customers, your shareholders, right? Those are the guys who benefit with it, right? Look at the hotline. We still use this hotline. We created a INOC-DBA hotline system, and it's an ASM-based system. And, at my house, I have a INOC-DBA phone. You dial the number, and you pick it up and ring it. I know if that phone rings, and I use the Star Trek Red Alert siren on it. So when it goes off, I go, oh. And it's set up where you can actually, cut through, how to talk to people with it, right? And we have exchange points using it, so everybody on exchange point using it. So look at communication tools, special communication tools with this. Look at getting people's chat addresses and things like that so you know when to chat. I'll open up my chat windows, and I'm on all sorts of chat, and that's one of the key things that people ping each other in operations security community. Hey, you're looking at this, or you're looking at that. What's going on with this particular piece of malware? Here's a 0-day that came out. Is the 0-day exploitable? Is it hitting your customers, right? There's a lot of communication that flows with it. So open up as many communication channels as possible and put the links in with it. All the core basics of protecting your network. And this is one of the things that where a couple of operator buddies of mine in big service providers in the U.S. last year said, hey, Barry, you need to start teaching this again because nobody's teaching it right now since you left the vendor I used to work at. And because we're seeing networks not being secure. In other words, it seems like people are ignoring the threat. And, a couple of weeks ago, or it was actually last week, we had an operators get hit on a /30 segment. Right? Well, what's a /30 segment? Well, it's a backbone link. In a backbone link between two routers, you put a /30 subnet. And that operator, it seems, it used to, 5 years ago, they used to hide those /30s. In other words, you sinkhole it. There's some techniques we use for point protection to protect those links so that people from the outside world can't attack it from off net. And over time, whoever did that either didn't document it well, left the company, all right? And so you have entropy kick in, and so now that network that used to be protected is not protected anymore. And they got hit with a DOS attack, right? Takes down the backbone links. Now, 5 years ago, that was a 1 gig connection. Today, that's a 100 gig connection, right? So, the impact on our networks is more dramatic. And so some of these techniques that we talked about in the, you have to find a way to institutionalize it, And sometimes these techniques are missed when you move from 1 gig to 10 gig to 100 gig, all right? So you can't ignore these as you go forward with it. The same thing with edge protection. Your autonomous system. As an autonomous system, you control what goes inside and outside your network, right? We don't organize ourselves on national borders. We organize ourselves on autonomous system borders. All right? That was the architecture we chose to use for building up the internet. That has worked really well for us over the years. But remember, you control what goes inside and outside your border. So if you don't want to have people doing SNMP scans of your routers and switches, then set up a policy to make sure people don't have SNMP scans on your routers and switches. Which technique to use? There's several different techniques you can use, but set up that policy. Some of the big providers I see who do this really well actually wrote up, here's the policy. There shall be no outside network allowed to do SNMP scanning, at all. So in other words, they define the policy. All right? And then depending on which vendor equipment they have on the edge over time, that's the implementation document. So they have a policy document that says what's allowed and not allowed, and then they have an implementation document depending on what piece of equipment is there. Right? But they think through that. All right? So edge protection is really important with it. Our number one technique still today, and it's pretty amazing with it, is remote trigger black hole. BGP, Border Gateway Protocol, is one of our most powerful tools for protecting our network. With that Border Gateway Protocol, one BGP update into my network, I can go out there and black hole at the edge a attack flow coming into my network. And I can trigger it all throughout my routers. Still works on all the different router implementations out there. All right, very simple to do. There are updates you can do with it, source-based and flows into MPLS and shunts and things like that with it, but this basic one. Now, the shocker I had in February NAAWG is I had a room about this large with this many people in it, and they're all service providers there, and I asked how many people had remote trigger black hole deployed in their network, and only a third of the hands went up in the room. And I went, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that's not good, because this is a tool that I thought we had basically everybody did it, and then I'm finding out that entropy kicks in, whether people move in different jobs and things like that, and we're finding out that a lot of people don't have this deployed. So this is something to go back and find out. Do you have that ready, configured, and deployed with it? Don't do like I did with one provider where they had a major DOS attack against a bank, and in the middle of the DOS attack, I'm on the phone with them, and we're configuring this technique in the middle of the attack. You can't do that. I've done that a couple of times. But better to do it when there's no activity on your network, all right? Sinkholes. Sinkhole is a place you would put honey nets, okay? You have to engineer it into your network. You can't wait for an attack or an issue to actually deploy a sinkhole. Sinkholes are probably one of our most powerful security tools out there, but it needs to be architected into your network. There's people say, oh, I'll just throw a sinkhole into my network, and then you'll find out that, in the middle of the incident, you throw too many packets into the sinkhole and you take down a POP. Not a good thing to do, right? So engineer your sinkholes into it. And there's a whole, we're not going to cover the details of sinkholes, but it's in there. BCP 38. Check it. BCP 38, there are some people irritated with me right now because I've been involved with probably the most BCP 38 deployment than any one engineer and individual on the planet, because I was pretty passionate about deploying it. Helped develop certain techniques that we use in the industry for it, got those deployed all over. Big providers from all over the world, some of the biggest providers, I helped them get it all deployed. But we're at the 80-20 point. So statistically, based off the spoofer project point, we're at the 80-20 point. We've also run into a different scenario. BCP 38 only covers between the service provider and their end customers. As we've got hosting providers out there, BCP 38 doesn't say stop, check the spoof, from WordPress systems and cloud systems and things like that. So anti-spoofing expectations need to be changed with it. So it's something to do, but BCP 38+++, as we call it, is probably one of the things you're going to see develop over the next, in 2013, because we got to change our expectations of where we put anti-spoof filtering. We're still getting a lot of spoofed DOS attacks out there, way too much than we should have, but it's not coming from the consumer edge, it's coming from hosting edge. BGP prefix filtering. I always get surprised how easy it is to go out there and put a BGP prefix and leak it from a CPE-N router and then have it bleed all over the internet. You know, way too much of it out there. Yes, there's work to do BGP sec, but whether that's deployable or not is yet to be seen. In the meantime, we know there's a whole bunch of techniques to doing BGP filtering that do work. So there's a whole bunch of materials on here on BGP filtering, on prefix filtering out there. Total visibility on network. Technologies like IPFix, NetFlow, Sinkhole, Passive DNS, all these different tools, please look at doing it. I mean, when I came out of the military networking world and went to the commercial service provider world, the thing that was drilled into me was that understanding my customer was key to making money. And understanding your customer of all the visibility of what's going on with the customer is confidential to my organization, right? So I keep all the privacy issues and things like that. But it was key for me to understand what's going on for making money. My product managers use it, my sales people use it, my operations people did it, my planning people used it, and my security people used it. So I'm always surprised when I talk to operators and they go, well, I don't know what my customer's doing. I go like, how are you making money, you know, with it? So visibility is key for security. There's a whole bunch of tools out there to keep visibility for doing security, but when you convince your management to say, we need to put new visibility tools into our network so you see what's going on with botnets, show how the product manager can use that data. Show how the salespeople can use that data, right? So it's multi-use data. Total visibility inside of a service provider environment is a multi-use sort of function in my personal experience with it. As I move back to an operator, you know, I know that my get well plan for this operator I'm moving into, you know, the first 6 months is going to be visibility, because I asked them, do you know what traffic goes where, what customer? And they look at me and go like, nope. I go, okay, so first thing I'm going to do, total visibility. And what did I hear complaints from the product managers? Oh, we don't know what the customers are doing. All right? And then I know once I throw the visibility tools up there, I'll say, here's all the botnets being infected on my customers. Here I start being able to do the cleanup. So visibility is critical with it. And some of the stuff, like I gave the example of VTOI access list going in a syslog with MRTG. A lot of these visibility tools are not really CapEx expensive. They're OpEx expensive in the sense you probably have to script it, right? But they're not CapEx expensive, right? You can go out there and buy, vendor equipment to do all this, but most of the service providers who do this visibility, they script it. They use open source tools with it. All right, so, and then this last one, which is this session we build up towards, which is remediating violated customers. And I use the term violated customers because, a botnet infecting on somebody's, computer device is a crime, right? And the primary function, the primary perpetrators out there are cyber criminals using it to monetize for their own criminal benefit. So they are violated. They are raped, right? It's a violation to their systems, like that house getting broken into. And standing by, having the days where you just stand by and say, well, it's not my problem, it's going to bite you. Because as I mentioned before, there's a trend within civic society, to say we need to do something about it, which I'll talk about in a minute, but the factors with it. But this is now a pressing issue. And I think you're going to hear that through this MAAWG as more people talk about it. It says this is now, your customers expect you to have an anti-spam policy. Your customers are going to expect you to have an anti-botnet policy. What is that policy? Tell me what that policy is. The expectations are going to be there.